Now that we've looked at how parts of speech can make up sentences, we're going to look at how sentences make up paragraphs. We could transcend this a step further and look at how paragraphs make up essays, but we'll save that for later in the course. So let's go ahead and begin with paragraphs. The first thing is that they are not just random sentences put together. For a paragraph to work, it needs to be a collection of sentences that have some type of connection. Without this connection, we don't really have a real paragraph. Okay, so it's all working together to convey one singular point or to support one singular claim, as we'll see later in the course when we talk about topic sentences. Now, just like in the thesis that the criteria might not work for a narrative, topic sentences also can make a narrative feel cumbersome or contrived. So we're going to cover those with the future papers. All right, paragraphs not only help us break up texts, but they also help organize our points. So we think of our arguments, or I mean, even in the narrative, we have some type of argument. We might say the ride on the Ferris wheel made me sick. So we can break that argument up into parts so it's not so overwhelming for our reader. And it gives us those individual cohesive points that we want to touch upon. Normally, we'll begin with the topic sentence, but again, for the narratives, makes it seem kind of weird. So we're going to really cover topic sentences later. The main thing to remember with the topic sentence is it works like a thesis for the paragraph. Okay, so it's going to make a claim that the paragraph is then going to support. So again, in a narrative, it's going to feel weird if we are making claims all the way through it. This is better done for an argument paper like a research paper. Also for narrative, the body paragraphs are going to be the story or the action of the essay. I've added that they may be detached somewhat from the introduction and conclusion. As far as our introduction, it might be a scene, it might be some background information. It isn't necessarily contained within that 10-minute moment. Our 10-minute moment is going to fill the body of the essay. And then the introduction and conclusion can be separate from that. One thing I want to talk about is the concluding paragraph. What we want to avoid is the type of conclusion that says, hey, reader, in case you don't get it, this was the point of my essay. We don't want to do that for a narrative. Instead, think of a scene that leaves that final impression for your reader and just end with that scene. Again, it doesn't need to be within the 10 minutes. So if you're writing about maybe a competition, the competition itself will be within the 10 minutes, and then maybe you're receiving the award afterwards as your final scene in the conclusion. That can be outside of that 10-minute moment. And then we want to indicate paragraphs through indentation. This seems like something that is common knowledge, but last semester I had so many papers that did not indent their paragraphs that it made the essay difficult to read, especially when sentences ended at the end of the line. I couldn't tell if a new paragraph was beginning or not. So make sure you're indenting them a half inch or 5 spaces. If you hit the tab key, it usually moves in a half inch. And that's all you need to do for your indentation. Okay, so with paragraphs, a difficult aspect is students often don't know when to start a new paragraph. So I've included some rules for that. For a narrative, one of the main principles to know is when we're moving to a new speaker in dialogue. Okay, so when we're moving to exact words from another person in quotation marks, we're going to move to a new paragraph. Let's look at this example. The day started out like any other with my alarm going off and me getting out of bed. Get up, my mother yells from downstairs. Now you'll notice that it starts with me getting up and my alarm going off, but the first exact quote is from my mother. And so we don't start a new paragraph there, but we will start a paragraph as I respond. I am up, I yell back. She then proceeds to give me a reminder to get ready for school every 5 minutes. So I'm telling you what she's doing, but I'm not using her exact words. So I'm not switching to a new paragraph. Of course, I linger in my room to make her panic. A few minutes later, I hear footsteps on the stairs as she yells, "You're going to be late." So now we're moving to her exact words. So this sentence is going to start a new paragraph. So every time we start with a shift in dialogue from one speaker to the next, using exact words, we're going to shift to a new paragraph. Other things that we'll use to determine where paragraphs begin and where they end, we'll talk more about with future essays. But the main thing is we start a new paragraph when making a new claim. So if we are talking about, let's say, capital punishment, and we say capital punishment should be abolished because of A, B, and C. In part A, we'll use a topic sentence. Then we'll use a new topic sentence for part B, a new topic sentence for part C, and we could create a 5-paragraph essay. Now, rarely are we going to get a 5-paragraph essay, especially with our word count. It'll probably be more paragraphs, but when you're making a new claim, you start a new paragraph. You also start a new paragraph when providing a new example. Now, this is when we get a complete and full example. If our first example is 3 or 4 sentences, we're going to use a new paragraph to do another 3 or 4 sentences. If our first example is 1 sentence, our next example is 1 sentence, we'll probably lump those together in the same paragraph. But if we have kind of a longer example and we're moving to another example, then shift to that new paragraph. A topic sentence that would help shift could be another example consists of the following. Okay, that's a claim that I'm going to provide another example, and then I would do so in that next paragraph. We also start a new paragraph when we are contrasting an idea. So maybe we give an example or we give something real world, and then we give a counterexample, a time when maybe what we're arguing doesn't work. If that's the case, again, we'll start a new paragraph because we're shifting ideas, we're shifting claims here. And then when we're moving to a new step in a process, okay, again, it works kind of like the new example. If the first step contains multiple sentences, then the second step will start its new paragraph. If the first and second step are just 1 sentence, we'll probably keep those together until we get to maybe a new part of the process. So I hope that you understand the need to know our parts of speech in order to understand sentences and how they work, how to avoid those sentence level errors, and then how sentences work within a paragraph. And you can see that if we have sentences that work together, paragraphs that work together, we're going to have this cohesive unit within the essay itself. And that's what we want. We want a solid theme that runs from the beginning to the end, especially in our narrative. We want that thesis to guide the entire essay. And so if you're promising fear in the thesis, or you're promising pain in the thesis, I should see that run through the entire essay. All right, if you have any questions, please let me know.